Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. Everyone, welcome into the program today. So today on the show we have, of course, Ralph Bond. He is our science and tech trends correspondent. And yeah, we're going to talk about a number of stories that are going to really tickle that part of your brain that's, all about learning. And it's going to be a lot of fun because these are stories that we definitely haven't covered on the show this week. And you should definitely hear about them. So everyone, before we get to that, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including the show notes. You'll find, of course, things like the contest, the giveaways, the links to social media, all that good stuff to keep up with what we're doing. But the show notes are super important because if you're listening and you want to be like, hey, there has to be more to that story, the answer is you're probably right. And you can, of course, find the links to the to everything that we talk about right there in the show notes. Ralph does a great job of putting those all together, and you can, of course, go there and check that out. Now, with that being said, computeramerica.com, and of course, we'll have a link to Ralph's site as well. And I think let's just go ahead and get this show started. So, joining us today, Ralph Bond. He's a longtime Computer America contributor, and of course, he's also on the Mark Mason Show over on WKEX over in Portland. And Ralph, welcome back onto the program. How you doing?
Hey, it's great to be back. And in this week of tragic news in Illinois and now in Japan, oh my goodness, we're going to turn things around and leave you with an uplifted spirit at the end of the show, I hope. Absolutely.
At least distract you for a little bit. And you know what? You're going to come away with, a little bit of knowledge about stories that, Ralph, you cover a lot of stuff that's, kind of futuristic in the near future, currently happening sometimes, but this is a lot of it's research and, good research. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and tell the nice folks about what it is you try to do here on the program?
Yeah, so here's my standard boilerplate on what I do. So, I'm an aggregator of science and tech news features I find monitoring a host of online news outlets. And I look for important and sometimes wild and wacky stuff out there that doesn't usually get captured by the mainstream press because, of course, they're so involved with tragedies like we've seen this week. But I'm always on the lookout for news that gives a glimpse into where we're headed. Future sort of stuff in robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, space research, physics, you name it. And what I do with each news item is present the essential points, a condensation, and I hope in a really digestible form. And I stress to our audience, as you said at the outset here, please check out the show notes if you want to learn more, because Ben and I are going to give you just the top key points. The show notes will give you the links to the articles, pictures, all the good information so you can dive in deeper if you want to.
Exactly. So with that being said, Ralph, I think it's a good time to just kind of jump into the first one. And, ships they've gotten kind of a bad rap, but at the same time, they're super, super important for what we do as kind of humans. I'm sure, Ralph, that, when it comes to environmental damage in the environment, ships contribute, a lot to pollution. But I've never really considered, because they're such massive machines, I've never considered that they could be anything but gas guzzling monsters. Story number one, happy to see it. So let's start.
Yeah, this is great. Headline here is world's largest hybrid ship will set sail in 2024. If you have the show notes or if you're watching our presentation right now, you see a picture of this vessel. This is a good size ship. And I got the story from Popular Science. And here's the scoop. French shipping company, an outfit called Brittany Ferries, recently announced it has commissioned the world's largest hybrid ship. So the images you see here are conceptual. They're not real yet. The 639-foot ship will be named the St. Malo and will be operational in 2024, so not too far away. It will be used for shuttling passengers to and from St. Malo in France to Portsmouth, England. So it's like a commuter bus, if you will. And by the way, a second hybrid ship will be added to their fleet shortly thereafter. So this is just the beginning, which is very exciting. The new ship will have a hybrid propulsion system that can use both liquefied natural gas and battery power to run. But Ben, the real excitement, no surprise, is all about the electric power system for this upcoming new ship. So the new St. Malo ship will have a huge battery with an 11.5 megawatt hour capacity, which is about double the size of most hybrid marine vessels on the water today. Most of them are much smaller, like luxury yachts, that kind of thing. And by the way, just a quick aside here, a megawatt hour is equal to 1,000 kilowatts of electricity used continuously for 1 hour. So stop and think about that. This is an 11.5 megawatt hour battery on this ship. And the ship's enormous battery will allow it to operate with full power when it's in EV mode, using both propellers and all of the ship's thrusters to maneuver in and out of ports emissions free. Nice. What I didn't find in the articles and the research, Ben, I didn't find how much does it play the hybrid game when it's going across the channel as opposed to going in and out of ports. It seemed to stress the in and out of ports part, but maybe that's where a huge amount of the emissions and fuel problems happen anyway. So it's still a great thing. The new hybrid ship will be able to save up to 15% on greenhouse gas emissions overall compared to a typical diesel powered vessel. But this last part, I think, is great. And to make the ship even more climate friendly in the future, they're building this thing with space built in, ready for larger batteries and the addition of solar power. So this is a really well thought out scheme, I think. And it's very encouraging. And by the way, I've been reading, and maybe you have too, Ben, that there's a lot of thinking and a lot of work going on. And can we someday have the gigantic freight ships that have, you've seen pictures of them with all those box things stacked up on them, right? Someday we might be able to get hybrid technology to work for those massive ships as well. But at least this is a big step forward. And again, the world's largest hybrid ship coming in 2024.
Oh yeah. And I think the immense scale of those ships really, were really highlighted when, was it Evergreen, the ship that got caught in the channel? And kind of went sideways and blocked all those ships from, stopped the entire world because they couldn't use that one shipping lane. Those things are massive compared to this, but this is still a very, very big ship. I'm sure if anyone said, "Hey, you want a 640-foot ship?" they go, "Oh yeah, absolutely." It's a good sized ship. Ralph, the only comment I kind of want to make here was about this whole coming in and out of port thing. And I guess it's kind of like the difference between your fuel economy, driving in the city, stopping, going, stoplight, going, and then versus like highway where you're just going 65 or, because you'd never go over 65 from one place to the other, and your fuel economy goes up 15 miles per gallon. I'm guessing because of all the maneuvering they have to do, Ralph, that's where a lot of the wasted fuel and the fact
that's right.
I think to my point real quick, I just want to say that 15% of all the fuel is saved just by changing up how it docks, and that is huge savings just for such a small portion of its operation.
Yeah, it's an aggregate savings. It's a nice step forward and very encouraging. And this is just the beginning. And of course, 2 ships now. In the future, maybe all ships will come standard with hey, this is. And on top of that, you can also think that that's where people live. Is the land. And I know that polluting the ocean and that kind of thing. They're working on that as well. But for immediate effects to reduce the pollution, around people. There you go. And of course, it will overall reduce pollution everywhere. But Ben, one more little nugget on this. It talks about it's a hybrid propulsion system that can use liquefied natural gas and battery power. Well, what about getting a bio-friendly, climate-friendly alternative to liquid natural gas? it's entirely doable, right? So maybe you could have hydrogen, maybe you could have some other sources that could hold hands with the battery power and make this ship really remarkably climate friendly. TBD.
All we need are one of these other stories that you have that, maybe we can get it to run on microplastics, and then, hey, everything is solved. It's perfect.
Love it.
But no, this is a great story and definitely uplifting because, hey, this is a problem that definitely needs solved. So story number one.
Yes.
Story number two. This one, looks a bit like, and I'll just describe it real quick, and I'm sure you're going to describe it as well. But for those who can't kind of look at this is the Fission design concept from NASA for the moon. And honestly, Ralph, when I first thought it, I was like, that's a huge canopy on some of those like heat lamps, I guess that like restaurants
yes,
have.
I know what you mean.
Yes. So it looks like a heat lamp that the restaurants would have with a massive array on top of it. But there you go.
Yeah, looks kind of like an umbrella stand or something, sort of, kind of. I don't know. It is difficult to describe if you're not able to see the image that Ben and I are talking about. Basically, it's a sort of a mini tower-like structure with a gigantic flat disc on top. But I digress. Let's get into the story here. The headline is NASA selects 3 nuclear fission design concepts for a power supply on the moon. And this comes from PC Magazine. To me, this was really interesting. NASA and the U.S. Department of Energy have selected 3 design concept proposals for a nuclear fission power system that could be ready for a demonstration test on the moon by 2030. So in this case, we're really, putting on our telescope looking into the future here. But before we go on, let's make sure everyone's okay or understands what we're talking about when we say nuclear fission. What it is, it's a nuclear reaction in which a heavy nucleus splits spontaneously or upon impact with another particle. And the bottom line is the result of this is a large amount of continuous energy. That's the appeal of all this. And here's why NASA and the DOE want a nuclear fission power supply solution. Nuclear fission results in the release, as I said a moment ago, of a large amount of continuous energy that could help power a base on the moon. And there's other future possibilities as well we'll get into. The 3 lead contract winners for this research, and this is research, these 3 are going to compete. The 3 players are Lockheed Martin, Westinghouse, and IX, not the Roman number 9, but IX, which is a joint venture of Intuitive Machines and X Energy. And the 3 contracts, they're valued at about $5 million each, and they call for the development of design concepts, mind you, concepts for a 40 kilowatt nuclear fission power system. And Ben, that's pretty powerful. In fact, one nugget I found that was kind of fun is that's enough output to continuously run 30 average American households for 10 years. That's the appeal of this. I'd like to have one of these in our neighborhood. Why can't I have my house and 29 of my friends have one of these? Anyway, NASA also noted that the development of these nuclear fission power technologies will help pave the way for future deep space exploration missions. So in addition to the idea of powering a moon base, they see this as having the potential to help with many, many other applications in space exploration. So kind of a neat futuristic, let's see what happens. You got some really good players here. The IX player is kind of interesting because Lockheed Martin is a big name. Westinghouse, of course, big name. But who are these IX guys? I'd like to learn more about them.
Yeah, it's have not heard about either of those, unfortunately. It's and real quick, I'm just checking out one thing. Okay, so Ralph, this could run. So one of these could run a hybrid cruise ship for about 0.0075 seconds, or I'm sorry, minutes. So pretty good to put it in a term that people may relate to as well. So I was just doing some quick math there. That's totally irrelevant.
Very good. Very good.
But yeah, no, this is really cool. And my hope, much like a lot of what happens with NASA, because I know some people, and obviously no one here who listens to this show, but you may know people that are like, why invest in NASA? Why invest in space? That doesn't help us here. That doesn't do that there. That doesn't do anything good for us here on Earth. And, so many inventions that we use today from, styrofoam and heat insulation and ballpoint pens and, so on and so forth do make it back here to Earth, Ralph.
Exactly.
I'm wondering if this works out so well. I mean, yeah, I could see smaller, there's been more talk about nuclear energy here on Earth and, implementing these. Imagine, hey, if, per neighborhood, you had one of these and they could make it safe, they can make it durable, that kind of thing. This is the kind of thing I'm looking forward to, because maybe neighborhoods would be run on these things instead of, getting a huge power grid. I don't know, but
yeah, maybe.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I'm sure there's probably, my guess is for, say, domestic application of something like this prototype, probably there's safety issues and stuff. And of course, how do you interact, or how do you interconnect it into the existing infrastructure of your neighborhood or business area? And so I'm sure there's a lot of things here, but it's just kind of fun to think about.
It's definitely a possibility. And there you go. So with that being said, that was story number 2. And again, I apologize if, even in your mind's eye, you still don't have a good picture of this thing. It's pretty cool. Definitely go check out the show notes and look at it.
Yeah, it's pretty stylish.
Yes, definitely. So good concept. Story number 2, story number 3, and let's talk about Germany for a minute. And this is crazy because the size of this thing. I have no idea how this is going to work. But story number 3 is talking about hot water to heat homes.
Yes. Again, the headline here is Germany is building a colossal hot water. It's nicknamed Thermos, like, the thermos you put coffee in or something, right? To heat homes. Okay. Boy, when I saw that kind of headline, and a lot of times too, friends, I paraphrase or modify the headline to make it a little more conversational. But when I saw this in this ABC News feature, I went, okay, I gotta know what's going on here. And we have a picture of it, of course, if you're able to see the picture. It's this gigantic cylindrical structure. But let's get into this. A huge cylindrical tower is under construction near the banks of Berlin's Spree River that will act like a giant thermos bottle to keep a massive amount of water super hot. And you go, why? Okay, that's great, but why? Well, here's something that I didn't know, Ben. Being a West Coast guy, although I was born in Connecticut, but being a West Coast guy, I kind of didn't think about radiant water heating. But anyway, many German homes are heated using hot water. And I had to actually get a refresh in my mind about what is that all about? It's an old school kind of technique for heating a home or business. So hot water heating systems are built around the premise of radiant heat. Water is heated by a boiler and circulated throughout a building. That's the typical way it's done. Usually homes, older homes especially, through a series of pipes that heat radiators in your home or office or whatever, give off the heat. And the heat radiators, friends, again, for younger audience members, maybe West Coast people who aren't really kind of familiar with this, they look like a row of, like a box, a rectangular box, but made up of a row of fin-like, I'm badly describing it, metal things. Do a Google on radiator and you'll see. And they give off heat, and that's the heat then transfers to the air in the room. That's how you heat. So I had to get a refresh on this because I was going, what? Anyway, with all that said, so for the Berlin area, where you have so many homes and businesses still using this water radiant heat solution, which is very old school, but nonetheless, that's what they've been doing. So for the Berlin area, the idea is to use the hot water stored in the gigantic tower to help heat homes starting next winter. This is aggressive. And it's all part of an aggressive effort to turn away from fossil fuels for home heating. Now, here's some stats on this thing. This is really fun. With a height of almost 150 feet and holding up to 14.8 million gallons of hot water, the Swedish utility company building the structure says the tower will help heat Berlin homes this winter, even if, ding, 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 Russia cuts off the gas supplies. That's what our German cousins here are getting aggressive. They're getting ready. They're planning for the very near future, to say the least. But to me, Ben, here's the really compelling part of the plan. The electric water heating system that will bring the stored water in this gigantic structure to get this almost a boiling temperature. What? Will be powered by excess electricity from solar and wind power plants across Germany. This is like a win-win-win.
I'm sure
it's just stunned.
Yeah, I'm sure that anyone who's tried to boil water and, we're waiting for it to finally boil, and that's probably, just a couple of pints or a couple cups of water to heat 14.8 million gallons to near boiling. That's incredible.
It is absolutely stunning.
And by the way, I did look up radiator, and so anyone who's seen a movie that was set in like New York in like the 70s or 80s, you're very familiar with what a radiator looks like in like a hotel.
There you go. Thank you, Ben. That image helps a lot. There it is.
So stuff like that.
If you're watching the Hulu show Only Murders in the Building, I'm sure that apartment building has radiators. It'd be my guess.
Exactly. So very vintage, but much like what we talk about all the time, Ralph, is like new technology. I think a lot of smart people can come up with things that are better than what we currently have. But my favorite stories that you bring here, Ralph, are ways that we can adapt new technology and make it retrofit or make it compatible with what we already have. And yes. That's what we have here. And that's what I love.
Yeah. And I do too. I think, again, you look at the world of climate friendly energy alternatives, anything that takes advantage of an existing infrastructure. A couple of weeks back, we talked about retrofitting a farm tractor to run on hydrogen. Right. Yeah. So they're not saying we've got to build entirely new tractors. No, we can retrofit this. And they're retrofitting an old school hot water system and again, having the electric water system that's going to heat this massive amount of water, use renewable energy. It's a win-win-win. I just love it. I love this story. And I think you're dead spot right on when you talk about using existing infrastructure. They're not going to change the piping. They're not going to change. They're just going to make a new source for the hot water, period.
Even if that does come at the urgency of modern politics, this is something that is going to help a lot of people. So this is perfect. And I had no idea that, you were going to hit us with the solar and, wind generation at the end there. So perfect story.
It's super cool.
Story number 3, story number 4. And for those who are squeamish, be careful looking at these images. They are perfectly natural. It's never been a part of a human yet, I guess. But this may, make you kind of double take and wince a little bit, but let's go ahead and do it.
Well, yeah, it's fascinating and scary and creepy all at the same time. And I'll preface this story, a tease with, here comes the Terminator. So you'll get this in a second here. So headline, scientists create a living skin layer for robots. Let that sink in. Did the research for this in 2 ways. Medgadget.com, which is an absolutely wonderful website, and then CNET, the major news outlet. And you can see the images. If you're lucky enough to see the images, you can see the prototype skin layer on a finger for a robot, and then the demonstration of its flexibility on the left, showing diagrams and so on and so forth. But let's get into the story here. Researchers at the University of Tokyo, by the way, I believe in the last many months, periodically we talk about the University of Tokyo. These men and women are doing some amazing stuff. Anyway, I digress. Yeah. Researchers at the University of Tokyo recently announced the development of a method to coat a robotic finger with a layer of living skin made from living human cells. Ooh. So this is the first step in a multi-year effort to, they say, ultimately the goal is to cover an entire humanoid robot, or I think more directly possible prosthetic appendages for humans with living skin. And there's a whole lot of reality checks and qualifiers we'll get into at the end here, but still the ambition is admirable. The living skin coating for the team's proof of concept finger for a robot hand is strong and flexible enough to allow it to bend and flex, and it can repel water and even self-heal if damaged. Look at the image that you're showing right now. You can see they took a little razor knife and cut the finger, and like your own living finger, hopefully if the wound isn't too bad, it can self-heal, right? And here's a little bit, we're going to geek out, a little biology geek out here, how this amazing living skin was made. So step 1 involved a coating of a layer of collagen and human and human dermal fibroblasts, which are two of the major components of the connective tissue within human skin. So that's step one. Step two involved adding a second layer of human epidermal keratinocytes, which readily adhere to the first layer to create the outer layer of the living skin. So that's our biology geek out. Now back to the story. The University of Toyota.
Well, yeah, they essentially recreated actual skin, using actual parts of our skin. They recreated on a robot. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. So the University of Tokyo team also showed how the living skin could naturally shrink to conform to the surface and shape of their prototype robot finger. And that's amazing in its own right. This part, though, just is really, it's really weird. The next major development step for the prototype robot finger's living skin is to make it more lifelike with the addition of follicles, nails, and even sweat glands. What?
Yeah. Sweaty robots. Okay. We needed them.
That's it. And they'll need deodorant. So, okay, reality check. This is a magnificent research, wonderful, fascinating, but there's a lot of challenges up ahead, and then the researchers admit this themselves. But my thoughts were, how do you maintain the living skin, right? You'll need a way to circulate blood, et cetera. And I recall in one of the articles I read, because I looked at many articles on this topic, I think I came across a reference that the researchers noted that they have to keep the finger, the experimental finger that's shown in the picture in our article here, they have to keep it maintained in a nutrient bath all the time. So that's how that skin is staying alive. But this is a very, very early stage in the development of this new technology. And like I said about one story last week, I give this an A triple plus for creativity and going out there on the edge. Again, many, many hurdles ahead of us. But can you imagine if somehow, some way, let's take a prosthetic. I think that's really what's exciting to me. A forearm or a hand or something. If they can connect the skin surface to your real circulatory system and so forth, and someone could have a prosthetic hand that feels like, well, it is living skin. Holy smokers. And if they can make that living skin source from your human skin cells, wow. The possibilities to me are just mind-blowing. I'm much more interested in the idea of prosthetics for this application than I am so much for robotics. Although the robotics thing, again, that's the joke about the Terminator.
Right. Yeah. And there's so many instances where robots are taking, kind of human responsibilities. I'm thinking like, caring for children or manning machinery and so the closer we get to that ideal version of the Terminator, like you said, or something that we can take a robot and it looks, performs, interacts with whatever job we're giving it, just like a human would. That's super important. Even if it's, childcare, dog walking, if it's, whatever, there's still so far to go. But this is, Ralph, even if this is 1% of the 100% we need to get there, this is still the first time I've heard of that 1%. This is really, really cool.
Me too.
Still so far to go, but great and creepy images that you were able to bring us here today, Ralph. But overall, I had a lot of fun, and I hope that everyone out there listening, you had a lot of fun too, because these stories, again, you can find more over in the show notes. But hey, Ralph, I think you did an amazing job, and hey, this has been a lot of fun. So everyone, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. You do something fun, enjoyable, relaxing. Next week is going to be better, everyone. I know that it will. And Ralph, until next week yourself, I hope that you have a great one. Everyone, have a good day. Bye-bye.